Kings talk, baby.
Get ready for some Kings talk.
For 1 hour of Sacramento Kings talk.
Diving deep into your Sacramento Kings. Return of the Roar with Brenden Nunes, Frankie Cardicelli, and Chris Watkins on Sacktown Sports 1140.
Return of the Roar live podcast here on Sacktown Sports 1140. My name is Brenden Nunes. Chris Watkins, not far behind here, going to be joining us in studio here any minute now. Frankie Cardicelli taking the day. Got some dad duties going on. Understandable, you know. Can't really relate, not going to lie. But hope everything's going all right over there with Frank and Junior. I haven't checked on what's going on with the Yankees. That'd probably tell us a lot about how Frankie's mental health is currently. But mental health of Kings fans, questionable, I guess. They won 3 straight games after losing 3 straight in this final road trip of their 2024-25 NBA season. A weird one, to say the least. You lose 3 games, and going into this trip, first of all, just to set the stage a little, Kings fans will know, but a lot of pressure going into this trip. I think the Kings had been underperforming a little bit, a disappointing homestand that they had, and just still trying to click. A lot that changed throughout the course of the season, obviously, with Doug Christie becoming the head coach. And we're going to get into that a little later in this show, of multiple head coaches being fired since our last recording. And, you know, I think there's ways to draw parallels, or at least wrap them back around to the Kings and the decisions that they made. But Kings made their coach firing a lot earlier in the season, but Doug Christie still getting acclimated there. Then you go out and trade De'Aaron Fox. Obviously, you're trying to work Zach LaVine back in. Also, the Kings added familiar face and friend, I guess, Terrence Davis earlier today as well, that I'm sure we'll get into. But you go on this road trip really needing to do whatever you can to try and keep your hopes alive in the play-in. There was a thought that they maybe could fall out of the play-in completely, and that technically is still a possibility, but more likely than not, for example, if Phoenix were to lose their game tonight, the Kings would be locked into the play-in. That's still TBD if we're talking the 9th seed or the 10th seed. But something to keep in mind as they're right on the cusp of that. They go on this road trip, 3 straight losses: Orlando, Indiana, and then Washington. The Washington Wizards, of all teams, who swept the Kings this season. Funnily enough, we mentioned Detroit for half a second earlier. Mike Malone also got swept by the Wizards this year. It sounds like getting swept by the Wizards when you're a team that's supposed to be halfway decent is probably not the greatest formula. And G-Man was on with the Drive guys right before us here, said that they had a little bit of a team meeting after that Washington game between players and coaches, and apologies if that had already been out there, but I hadn't seen it myself. Shout out G-Man sharing that a little. And since then, 3 straight wins for the Kings to close out this road trip. Charlotte, take that for what you will. You're supposed to win that game, but hey, you were supposed to win the Washington game and you didn't. So progress? Question mark. Then you really go to Cleveland and you sweep the season series against Cleveland. I guess if you get swept by Washington, you get a little bit of like forgiveness when you also go ahead and sweep the top team in the East with the Cavaliers. And then they beat the Pistons in Detroit. Detroit, not the team that I think they've grown the reputation to have over the last few years, obviously having a big bounce back season, kind of their beam team equivalent in a way. But Chris Watkins sitting down with us here now. Chris, how do you try and make sense of what happened on this road trip? I feel like we've been asking this all year long, but what are your main takeaways as we continue to try and chase making sense of this team, knowing that we probably won't be able to by year's end?
Yeah, great question. First off, hello. How's it going? Sorry, I was running a little late.
You doing
there.
good?
Yeah, I got hit in the head by a baseball that I can only assume is Fernando Tatis's home run. I just returned from orbit from last night's game. Yeah, those for all the A's watchers out there. Yeah, no, I mean it's a very fair question. You don't really make sense of it, right? I mean, when like you laid out, I mean, when a team loses to Washington and then beats the best team in the Eastern Conference and arguably one of the best teams in the NBA and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the same 7-day stretch, like that really obviously leads to a lot of confusion. I think you've seen possibly some signs through some of the struggle play against, Indiana. It's not just the Washington game in particular that sticks out. I mean, during that little losing streak they had before going on this winning streak, there was elements of they were ahead in a lot of those games. And then, down the stretch, they eventually, it seemed like they fell victim to, we talked about maybe too much ISO ball. I think in general, you could just say the things that they were doing well, maybe through 3 quarters, for whatever reason in the fourth quarter, it seemed like they would go away from those things. Right. And so I think maybe what we've seen in this 3-game stretch, and I think specifically these last 2 games, is you see Zach LaVine getting really involved in that fourth quarter. I think it was a big conversation throughout the weeks. Him standing in the corner as DeMar or Malik or whoever is getting into their action in the fourth quarter. Zach LaVine has shown to be an incredibly efficient, high level, high difficulty scorer. And he wasn't getting touches at all, like not even getting attempts down the stretch of games. And I think we've seen specifically in these last 2 games that they've kind of made a conscious effort, but also I think you pointed it out last week as we were trying to figure out what was going wrong. Some of that's on Zach LaVine as well, like being aggressive, maybe speaking up vocally in the huddle and saying like, hey, I think I need this, or I'm feeling good, like look for me, or any of these kind of things. Like to me, the biggest difference that we've seen these past 3 games is it just feels like, yes, Malik is obviously has gone down. You've seen Sabonis, you've seen DeRozan, you've seen Zach LaVine, all 3 of them step up and, exemplified perfectly in that last game. Zach and DeMar combining for 80 points. Like that's special.
It's nuts. It's exactly what, to be fair, I think their best days in Chicago looked like as well when these guys are just on one offensively. Like we know, and I don't think there's been questions of can these guys score? Like we know that they can individually, right? It's about making this all mesh as a group. And when G-Man says the Washington thing, like specifically them having a team meeting afterwards, right? He said it involved players and coaches. And then you see Zach LaVine getting more involved afterwards.
Sure, right.
Like that is just curious to me. And you wonder what was said. I mean, Zach did feel like the biggest piece here that still needed to be figured out because it was, and that's understandable at this point. Again, there's a lot of factors that play in all of this, and personal lives as well. Like Zach had to uproot his whole life right after he had a baby. And there's a lot that goes into all of this. Obviously, you don't just plug a guy in and it works right away, right? Those are the outliers when those do take place. But these last 2 games at Cleveland, this is Zach LaVine, 37 points on 15 of 21 from the field, 7 of 11 from 3, 8 of 10 from the free throw line stands out to me also, because while these elite 3-point shooting numbers are going to pop, I think that Zach LaVine, one of the things he does really well is finish at the rim and get downhill. And I think that enables just him getting in a rhythm and a lot of this other stuff. So love to see those 10 free throw attempts in Cleveland. And then at Detroit, like you mentioned, only half of, the 80 that combined with DeMar, obviously, but 43 points from Zach LaVine, 4 assists, 3 boards, 16 of 28 from the field, 8 of 11 from 3, 3 of 4 from the free throw line there. I mean, pretty basic, but the Kings do well when Zach LaVine is able to be out there scoring. Is there anything that stands out to you? Obviously, like I was going to say, you've seen a lot of great scorers, but that may be overdoing it a little. You've seen
a handful,
top tier,
my fair share.
You've seen every team you've watched has had a leading scorer.
There you go. There you go.
How does Zach do it differently, you feel like, compared to some of these other guys? Is there anything that stands out to you about his game specifically?
I would say just initially the tough shots. Like, I mean, just sometimes the level. I mean, in the game against Detroit, I think it was. I'm might get that in the Cleveland performance confused, but he had a couple threes that he's literally like running and fading from the 3-point. Like,
it's like the definition of a heat check.
Yeah, like there's no stopping at all. It's just one fluid motion of him just running, leaning, pulling from 3, and it's bottoms. Like it sometimes I think that's part of it too. Like I think that might be one of those anti-analytics thing where it's watching a lot of baseball, the crack of the bat. Like sometimes the way that the ball goes through the net, it's like this is crazy. And I'm not saying Zach is one of a kind in that sense, but there's some dudes who you just know that they are an official bucket because the way the ball goes through the rim, and Zach falls into that category. I think Malik definitely falls into that category at times, but like especially when Zach is going 16 of 19 from the field in total, that's definitely been something that really sticks out, is just he's taking some insane shots, and it's effortless. It's super easy. And I definitely think another thing is just his explosiveness downhill. Obviously, we just saw a guy, or just had a guy, who is probably one of the most elite downhill scorers we've seen in the league in De'Aaron Fox. And I think that's probably the part of Zach LaVine's game that hasn't been nurtured the most, it feels like, throughout his career. It feels like he's definitely prioritized being a shot maker, being a shooter. And obviously it's paid off for him. I think now I heard he's first in the NBA in 3-point percentage. It's clearly paid off, but I think you're right. And I think it's been pointed out on the broadcast really since day one. Zach LaVine, to me, seems most efficient and most dangerous when he's running downhill and attacking the rim. And it feels like he almost does that hesitantly, or like that's his, I could do that anytime, but I would rather do these, tough leaners and things like that. And it's might be his preference to take those shots, but I think the most efficient Zach LaVine is going to be the one, or the best Zach LaVine is going to be the one where he finally is taking, 10 of his shots from inside the paint instead of, I shouldn't say instead of outside the paint, but as well.
Definitely. I mean, I think that DeMar mentioned pretty early into Zach being here, like the value of getting him downhill, that, if DeMar's calling you good at getting to the free throw line, you're probably really, really good at getting to the free throw line. So I think that there's something there, but also in these last 3 games, like trying to, obviously shout out Kyle Draper. We're not just looking at box scores here, but there's tendencies in some of these numbers. And it stands out to me that they shot above 40% from 3 in each one of these last wins.
Yeah.
Looked at the numbers. Chris, they have 21 games this year where they've shot 40% from 3 or better.
Okay.
What do you think the record?
First off, that's not very impressive. 21 games of your 7. I feel
I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
Yeah, I feel like you would ideally want to be closer to like 50%.
The fact that there are 55 where they didn't reach 40. Yeah, I guess that. So 21 games, 40% or higher. What's the record?
I mean, I would imagine that they can't have more than like 4 losses. So, we'll go. Don't make me do that, man.
Yeah, that would be 20 and
17 and 4. Right? I think you said 21 games.
Oh wow, I'm doing my math wrong. 24, my fault.
24 games.
But
so there you go. I'll go 20 and 4.
Yeah,
easy.
Right there. 19 and 5.
Wow.
When they shoot at least 40% from 3. Obviously, a ridiculous win percentage. Means in the 55 games where they don't reach 40% from 3, they are 20 and 35.
There you go.
And I don't know about you. I'm curious how you take that. But to me, that's like the prime example of a team that is hyper reliant on their offense.
Mm-hmm.
And also the fact that there are the 21 compared to 55 on the other end. I know that's a high bar for that marker that I'm looking at there. You're probably not great at consistently
definitely not
creating those sort of nights, but the way that you survive the bad shooting nights is, I mean, you can take care of some of the details. We see the Knicks being ugly but efficient offense, right?
Rebounds,
this year a little bit different.
Line disparity,
the possession game being
possession.
The big
that's
thing,
really
right?
What it is, right?
But the real main way, in my mind, the primary thing is the defense. Right? And
100%.
Like that Pistons game. This is an extremely
great
high
offense, man.
Game.
Great offense. Let me tell you, entertaining.
Game. But you can't stop anyone, and
the Pistons
sound
non-offensive
familiar?
juggernaut. Not-an-offensive juggernaut. The Pistons.
No, and like sound familiar? This has
been the problem.
Chris?
It's a much larger conversation for sure, but I mean, the point stands is that it really does feel like until this team in total, and whenever that is, and even it can even be for the rest of this season, or however many games they have left throughout the postseason, if they're going to make the playoffs, they can be a better team this year. They just have to find that defensive edge, and it's kind of an oxymoron because it's really not something you just find, right? Like it's something you have to be. There's a bit of skill involved. There's definitely a level of attention to detail that you have to have, and we just haven't seen this team collectively have that. And I mean, to me, that's really the part that I don't want to say they're not. It kind of makes them an unserious team. I mean, until they really commit on the defensive end, like it's great that they got the results against the Pistons. You're going to need to figure out how to win those kind of games as well. Like, when another team has it, I've been saying, that double overtime game that the Nuggets and Wolves had, I point that out. The Warriors Lakers game the other day. I think that's another great example of there's some teams out there that you can play all the great defense you want. They're just going to hit incredibly difficult shots. You have to be able to play in those games too. We know the Kings can play in those games. Okay, to an extent.
Right.
I don't know if they can do it
on
even
the right
to
night.
the level that they've been able to do it in the past. But if you want to be able to compete every single night and not have lapses against the Wizards, if you don't want to have a game where, frankly, it's a 50-50 game against them in Orlando, against them in Indiana, if you want to be more competitive in those games, you have to play defense at some point. And we know Doug Christie is obviously a defensive-minded guy. Obviously, when he played, he preaches the same message that Mike Brown would preach on the defensive end. But at the end of the day, it's got to be the players that take that on as well. And I just don't know if they have that in them. But if they can bring it out as many nights as they possibly can, they're going to be a fairly decent team.
If they shoot 40% from three for the rest of the year, they might gentlemen sweep their way through the whole thing. You never know. You never know. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Got to be able to play some defense, something the Kings got to get better at. And I don't know how you do that in 3 games, but that's what's left here as they are vying for play-in positioning. And some of the other teams they're rubbing shoulders with made some big moves, firing head coaches, GM getting moved on from as well. We're going to dive into that on the other side here, listening to live Return of the Roar podcast here on Sacktown Sports 1140.
The Sacktown Sports 1140 newsletter right to your email. Get your latest on the Sacramento Kings, athletics, and Republic FC with the Sacktown Sports 1140 newsletter. Visit sacktownsports.com to join.
It's Carmichael Dave talking to you about my good friends at American Energy. You're in the Sacramento area. You know how the seasons work. They are a-changing right now. So American Energy wants to help you stay warm for the rest of the cold season, but help you stay cool during the warm season. Best way to do that, make sure your system is operating safely. So right now is the time to take advantage of half off a tune-up, $24.50. They cut that right in half, and if you want a diagnostic, guess what? You can't beat free. If it's free, it's me, and now it can be you. And also, it's the end of the season blowout. $4,000 off a new system plus any rebates. That $4,000, that's a direct drop from the sticker price. It's a great deal. Check them out at theaeway.com or an instant quote, or give them a call at 916-520-9990. That's 916-520-9990. Tell them your good buddy Carmichael Dave sent you.
Call 916-520-9990 now.
Golf to Go is brought to you by the Hagen Oaks Golf Super Shop. Here's Frank LaRosa.
The word "for" has been used in golf for centuries, and its origins can be traced to the Middle Ages. According to historians, the word "for" is derived from the Old English word meaning before or in front of. In those days, the term was used to warn people of incoming arrows during archery practice. Another theory suggests that "for" has military connections. During the 19th century, artillery officers would yell "for" to warn their troops of incoming shells. This practice may have carried over to golf. The most popular theory, however, is that "for" has Scottish roots. In Scotland, "for-caddy" was used to describe a person who walked ahead of the golfers to spot where their ball landed. The "for-caddy" would then yell "for" to warn the golfers if their ball was heading towards another golfer or a spectator. Today, "for" is used to warn golfers or spectators of an errant shot. Whether it's derived from the Middle Ages, military practice, or Scottish roots, "for" has become an integral part of the game of golf, and now you know why. That's your Golf to Go. I'm Frank LaRosa.
Everyone has a past, but what happens if you've made mistakes and made good on that past, but it keeps following you? Are you looking for an attorney to erase past records and restore your rights? Maybe even restore your gun rights? Do you need a reputable criminal defense attorney who knows even good people make bad mistakes? Well, the attorneys at Gonzalez Law Office are here to help. Find Gonzalez Law Office online at saclegaldefense.com or call them at 916-304-9187. We don't settle for less, and neither should you.
Save $12,000 off MSRP on new 2025 Silverado 1500 LT at the Maida Chevy Silverado Supercenter after all rebates.
And Maida Chevy still has one of the largest selections in the Sacramento area.
With $12,000 off new Silverado exclusively at the Maida Chevy Silverado Supercenter. Now that's big, huge. See them all at MaidaChevy.com. Together, let's drive.
5 savings was traded 2011 or newer. Not available with special financing, lease, and some other offers.
Made a great deal at Maida.
Have you ever dreamed of shopping for the perfect jewelry from home? Well, now it's possible, and you can even build your credit. PrestigiOJewelers.com now offers online shopping, making us the premium credit jeweler nationwide. With an exceptional selection of fine jewelry, from engagement rings and gold chains to sparkling diamond earrings and much more. With over 30 years of experience, Prestigio guarantees you'll find exactly what you're looking for. It's fast and easy. Once approved, you'll receive a guaranteed credit line from $400 to $10,000. All you need is to be 18 years or older, have a valid form of ID, be employed for a minimum of 6 months, and a bank account for automatic payments. PrestigiOJewelers.com is the perfect way to establish or reestablish your credit, with interest rates at only 2.25% per month. We are here to help you with monthly reporting to all major credit bureaus. The perfect jewelry, the perfect price, helping you build perfect credit. Visit us online at PrestigiOJewelers.com or at one of our locations in Sacramento, Stockton, Merced, and Fresno. Enter code SACTOWNSPORTS at checkout to save 10%.
Are you ready to unlock your business's potential? Hey, I'm Alan Stiles, and you can do that with Roxas Technology Solutions. Their mission is to empower growth through cutting-edge, reliable, and scalable technology. They tailor solutions to enhance efficiency and foster innovation, ensuring your business thrives in the digital age. Located in Sacramento, their dedicated team is ready to partner with you for your long-term success. Transform your business now. Go to roxtech.com. That's WROXTECH.com. Rox Tech. Tomorrow's technology at your fingertips today.
Spring is in the air, and there's really nothing better than hitting the open road in a new Honda. Whether you're shopping for new or pre-owned, Stockton Honda has the selection and savings. Plus, get top dollar for your trade. And while life's roads are often filled with bumps, buying from Stockton Honda couldn't be smoother. Wherever the road you travel might lead, Stockton Honda is happy to get you there. Come in today or go to StocktonHonda.com.
Anytime, anywhere, it's all here. StocktonHonda.com.
Are you tired of your tee shots ending up in the adjoining fairway while the rest of your foursome is hitting it down the middle? Well, experts will tell you that being properly fitted for golf clubs will help you strike your drive center cut. The Hagen Oaks Player Performance Studio and its team of trained PGA professionals are ready to help you get rid of your banana balls and duck hooks. Hagen Oaks Indoor-Outdoor Player Performance Studio fittings are available 7 days a week. Make yours today by calling 916-808-2531. That's 808-2531.
Your home for Kings basketball for over 25 seasons.
Sacktown Sports.
Return of the Roar live podcast here on Sacktown Sports. My name is Brenden Nunes. No Frankie Cardicelli today. Taking care of Junior, Maybe the Yankees lost. Not sure.
Either one.
Yeah.
Could be Juan Soto's coming to town.
It's true. It's true. I think he's struggling with that one a little bit. Yeah. Trying to, you got to figure out the speech. Like, when you, it starts
with why.
It's like an ex-girlfriend, the typical, in the shower, man, I should have said X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Yep. That's what Frankie's currently experiencing, and he gets to prepare ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to see her,
Except this time her is Juan Soto.
Yes, precisely. But similar heartbreak, comparable.
I would say so. I've never dealt with anything to that level.
Yeah, fair enough.
I would hope not to.
Fair enough. Yeah, I hope the same for you. The Kings, meanwhile, well, you are a Kings fan, so if we're talking in that realm, it definitely reaches over
death
into
by
that.
1,000 blows.
Absolutely. And Memphis fans and Denver fans probably a little bit confused, I would guess, right
There's different
now.
levels of trauma, man. It's
earlier this week, I want to say it was, right? Taylor Jenkins gets let go. That was earlier this week.
Crazy.
I was leaving one of the A's games, and that it's the timing of it that's shocking.
Sure.
The fact that I want to say there were 7 games left in their season at that time. And it's easy to look and be like, oh, well, they've lost however many of their last game. I'm like, well, we have 5 games left in the season.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Also, I don't know. I think at some point I'm going to end up going on a whole rant of I think coaches are getting let go way, way too quick in the NBA in general, but we could talk about these specifically
I have
first.
my own rant, yeah.
I'm down. We can definitely get to
have
that.
a rant off.
So we have the Taylor Jenkins getting moved on from, and there's a bunch of weirdness to that. Maybe we could just talk about that one first.
Sure.
I didn't realize that coming into last year that they reworked the entire coaching staff around him, and he didn't get to pick his assistants.
Not a single one.
That sounds like the most Kangs thing ever.
Yep.
By the way.
Also, a lot of writing on the wall.
Absolutely.
There, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny when it comes out, right? And I mean, we experienced this year, is that a lot of fan bases, especially more league wide, right, are like, what? This is so shocking. And then the local people come out and are like, writing was kind of on the wall,
right?
And that's what's happening in both of these scenarios.
Both of them,
the second the news drops, it's like, well, actually, there's X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, the Memphis thing, they don't even promote one of their top assistants, or maybe one of the top assistants is the right way to say it, but not the one that everybody would tend to think. I think they even let go of another. There's a weird scenario. I'm forgetting.
I know they definitely had someone in mind, like one of the assistants
that everybody was,
but I'm not sure how far up on the bench he was, which is similar to the Doug Christie situation as well, where it's like Doug wasn't the offensive or defensive coordinator at the time, and
the current coach in place, or now previous, never picked that guy to be there. Like front office or whoever it may be above them picked that person there, and that begs the question of, was this the fallback?
I believe Adelman was there, has been there for a while, for what it's worth. That's the current Denver,
the Denver
coach, but yes, and the Grizzlies and the Kings coach, for sure.
Right. So just the Memphis one specifically, because then it begs the questions of, what's going to happen with John Morant this offseason?
Real quick as well,
Jackson, whoever.
Do you think Denver happens if Grizzlies don't? Like, does Denver only have the confidence to pull a move like this because Memphis did? Or, I guess you could maybe say that they're two completely separate. I mean, I think one definitely helps, but I think the question of if it happens at all is an interesting one.
It's one of those funny ones where obviously, we'll never know, but I think that it helps. Like you said, I think that's the best I could answer that from, obviously just kind of like guessing, piecing things together, is that you already at least witnessed what it's going to look like, and maybe you are, if you're considering it, you're probably watching and like,
for sure.
All right, how the Memphis fan base take this? And there was a lot of
seem
like,
pretty understanding,
we kind of get it,
for sure.
And so then, it probably does at least factor in somewhat, or it's something you're monitoring when you have that on your mind. But I take it in either direction, either one of them, or if we want to go more vague, but I mean, just as shocking to you.
Yeah. I mean, incredibly shocking. The Michael, and as the Taylor Jenkins ones felt like, I mean, again, like it's the initial, like we didn't have the Taylor Jenkins before Mike Malone to get us maybe prepared for the possibility of it even happening. Taylor Jenkins comes out of nowhere, but even then, I mean, I was getting my haircut as Mike Malone gets fired. There's no precedent for, like, there was no reason. I shouldn't say there was no precedent. There was no reason for Mike Malone in my mind to get fired. I know they've lost, I think, 4 straight games. And
which,
I know,
again, stupidest thing to be like, we lost 4 in a row.
One of those games is the Russell Westbrook missing layup and then fouling on the other end.
There are these iconic endings, infamous.
Well, and Russell Westbrook also had, so we'll just say, a very strange post-game interview in one, I think their most recent loss, where he's like, very, very short with the media, and pretty much it's just like, I don't know, man, like, I'm just tired of losing. I just want to get back to winning. And I also saw resurfaced earlier today, Mike Malone saying, coaches, the players will say, coach is tripping. And if you look at the film, you'll see, I'm not tripping. These guys just don't watch film.
Is this what? Yeah, they don't watch film.
They don't watch. Yeah, like we'll have to show them film because they don't watch film themselves.
Right.
I'm saying all this to say, I just really didn't expect the Mike Malone thing to happen, even though they got the 4-game losing streak, even though the Taylor Jenkins thing had just happened. Mike Malone won a championship with that team 2 seasons ago. And I know I heard Drapes actually pointed out earlier, like, Mike Brown wins coach of the year that same year. So funny enough, the coach of the year and the championship winning coach of that year are no longer with their organizations 2 years later. It just really speaks to, I guess, maybe this is the new world of the NBA. Like, I guess, you don't know until you know. Right. Budenholzer to the Bucks to an extent, for sure. Funny, and I should be Budenholzer now with the Suns too, but I think that maybe this is a new trend that we're going to see, is maybe even a little bit of the Mike Brown firing as well. Like, there's not really you can, with Luke Walton, you could feel almost a 2-week, or some would argue a 2-month long ramp up to, all right, like, this guy's going to get fired any day now, right? And it almost felt like they waited too long. Feels like nowadays maybe it's the opposite. It's get them out, and if you have an answer, it's never too late to save your season. That's the part that's really surprised me the most, is that both Denver and the Grizzlies both have used this not as like a, the long term, we don't see the fit and we'd rather get it started now. It's no, we still think and believe in this team this season, and that's why we made this move, because we feel like there's something to kind of reclaim here. And I just that's the part that surprises me, is that I would assume, and when Mike Brown got fired, it felt like, okay, well then you're punting on the season. There's no way you think you can make a change like this and then realistically just turn it around in the snap of a finger. And that was with Mike Brown months ago. I can't imagine the feeling making this change a week before the playoffs.
I think that the logic I don't think I answered your question laid out. No, I think that you did, though. I think the logic you laid out, it does seem like that is being pitched in a lot of these scenarios, but it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't write it out with this group. I mean, the only logic I can see is if you already thought this year was screwed.
You just have to be hyper confident in your decision, really.
And that
there can be no doubt
that some of these dudes are okay with this as well, whatever your top tier ones are, because eventually I want to bring this back to the Kings in a sec.
Sure.
But I think that you could see that, maybe we want a trial period with this person, but they have no time. Like right now, especially, you have no time to implement anything. The Doug Christie thing, that's a trial. Yeah. That's actually, all right, let's see what this guy's got, even though then he's had like 3 different teams under him just by himself. The Kings have had like 5 different iterations of this team throughout this season. It does not, it's insane to me. And I think that is there an idea that like a good coach is not hard to find? Like, I'm going to just go get my Charles Lee. I'm going to go get my Joe Mazzulla, Jordy Fernandez out there. Like, there will always be another one.
Right.
Or, to your Taylor Jenkins questions earlier, maybe letting your coach go does have to do with the other guys that were let go, because you're like, hey, that dude pretty good for my team.
Yeah.
So maybe those go hand in hand. But I think that we are too quick to be like, player doesn't like this guy, we got to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really a fan of how Riley does a lot of that stuff. I think that there's value. At least I wish there was more of it, is all. I don't think this needs to be every team. Right. And I get, I think you could go into the whole generational, this generation conversation.
That was what my
here.
rant was going to be about.
I think that's very much at play here. And to be fair, we're part of this generation. It's not like we're like sitting on our lawn necessarily. But at what, I don't think that you should just cater to the players league in this specific scenario, like the picking your trade destination. Sure. Yep. I have no issues at all. Made that clear earlier this year. This one's a little weird because you're letting them control the entire organization. And I think that there are certain players where that should be the case. If Jokic didn't want Mike Malone there and he was adamant on it, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. You have to let go of Mike Malone.
Correct.
All the reporting is that Jokic actually kind of like Mike Malone. There's other guys that are unsure.
Does that sound familiar?
To me, that means I'm unsure about the other guys. I'm not unsure about the coach that just brought us to a championship.
Agreed.
And so it's just, it is wild to me how quickly it's like, these guys lost the locker room, or this guy lost the locker room. Bye-bye coach, rather than like, let's rework the locker room a little bit here. And it's not like both don't exist, but I feel like we just are so quick, the NBA now, to just be like, we got to change something. Let's fire the coach.
Yeah. And and that was always the case, to be fair, is that the coach is always the first one to go, right? And that's not just in basketball either. 100%.
Shorter leash.
Feels like a much shorter leash. Like they have more than ever, again, these 2 prime examples, a quicker trigger than ever, to where there is no, we got to run it down the line. We have to ask Jokic. It's like, no, if the GM thinks we should do it and he gets approval from the owner, like that's kind of all we need. And we'll just pick up the pieces as they lie. And just because you got me fired up, like I'll go into the mini rant a little bit. Like I do think some of this is again, Mike Malone's comments of, these players are going to think I'm tripping, but I'm not. I'm just watching the film, which to me is a real sense. And I kind of feel like we got some of it here of these guys just don't want to be held accountable. These guys don't want to actually look at the film, look at their mistakes and try and get better. I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know what it is, but to me, there is a through line of Mike Brown, of Taylor Jenkins, and of Mike Malone. Those are 3 very demanding coaches. And something tells me that the players, and Again, I don't think it's Jokic. I didn't think it was De'Aaron Fox. They say it's not John Morant. I don't know. But I think those guys expect a certain level of defensive effort and, just attention to detail through practices and things like that. And I think, frankly, players don't want to do that. It's kind of a natural push and pull. The coach is going to push the players, and the players are going to try and say, can we get today off? Can we maybe not do sprints today? And it's the coach's responsibility to read his team and say, no, we need to do those things. Or, all right, I've been riding y'all a lot. I'll give you the day off. And clearly some coaches have a much tougher time of working that push and pull than others. I think it's something you learn. Mike Brown talked about it a ton of, in Cleveland, he was definitely iron fist. Going to Golden State kind of released him a little bit.
This was actually
this was the lighter
chill
version. Mike Brown, 100%.
Yeah.
And Mike Malone, I don't think ever got any sense of chill. And so, I think the championship probably buys him a couple years there of, hey, I can really, get on you guys because I have the championship ring to prove it. But I don't know. To me, it really does feel like players, I'll just sound like a get off my lawn. Players these days just really don't want to be coached hard. They want to kind of be fed into, I'll say their egos for lack of a better term. To me, it just feels like if you want to hold a player hyper accountable, that's now a bad thing. And I think, like you said earlier, I think a little bit more Pat Riley in this league would really do a lot of teams a lot of good.
I agree. I think Golden State sticking with Steve Kerr through a lot of this makes a lot of sense.
100%.
There's a lot of, as you say that, it makes me think these older, more, military-esque coaches, honestly, the whole Pop tree is really what we're talking about here.
Yeah, totally.
It's Greg Popovich that we're talking about here. You can go to Budenholzer, you can go to Doc Rivers, guys that have question marks about their future and have consistently been hopping around as of late.
No, and I know we got to go to break too, but I think the perfect example again is Eric Spoelstra with Pat Riley. LeBron, there's a lot of, I think at this point it was 12 years ago, so I think it's pretty confirmed at this point. LeBron wanted Spoelstra fired, and he wanted Pat Riley to coach that team. But Pat Riley said to LeBron James, no. I like Eric Spoelstra. We're going to keep him as the coach. You don't like him. You shouldn't have played here. You shouldn't have been. This shouldn't have been your decision. This is my decision, is to keep Spoelstra, and you see how it's benefited the Heat, not just through the LeBron years,
they have a
years
culture.
after.
We're the whole thing. We talk about continuity, consistency, and on the opposite end, just being a mess, and you don't know what to expect. We'll have some of the same people there all the time,
100%.
and obviously you got to keep people that you trust, but. I think back to a lot of Mike Brown's, the hardest part is not going from bad to good / decent. It's that next of good to great.
Right.
And just because you have a hiccup at the good portion doesn't mean let's just start this all over. At some point, I think that you should just be able to let these guys work through this. I do want to dive more into, I guess, the parallels between Taylor Jenkins and the Mike Malone situation and Mike Brown. More so, I've seen a lot of Kings fans saying, oh, but what the Kings did was bad? Look at this. Our situation makes a whole lot of sense. I know you and I have thoughts on that. We're going to dive into that on the other side. Also, is Terrence Davis supposed to save this team? We're going to dive into that on the other side here. Live Return of the Roar podcast, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Stay up to date on Sacramento sports. Join the Sacktown Sports 1140 newsletter. Visit SacktownSports.com.
Your old HVAC system could be costing you a fortune in energy bills and repair bills. Right now, Sierra Pacific is offering deep discounts, saving homeowners thousands of dollars. Savings that won't be available later this year. But you must act fast. We have to fill openings in our schedule next week. This limited time offer is only available if you book your installation for next week. Don't wait until it's too late. Call Sierra Pacific and lock in your savings today.
Sierra Pacific Solar Heating and Air, the guys in the big red trucks.
At SMUD, we power local business with incentives on clean energy equipment, tools to manage electricity usage and save money, tailored solutions from dedicated strategic account advisors, and 50% lower rates than neighboring utilities, all while doing more for the planet with clean energy solutions, savings, reliability, personalized service, clean energy, helping local businesses thrive. That's our clean power promise. Learn more at smud.org.
What's going on, world? It's your boy Kevin Hart with some exciting news. I am coming to a city near you. My new tour is called Acting My Age, and I want to see you there. Come out, have a good night, a good time. It's all new material in a much, much more intimate setting. Go get your tickets and head to KevinHartNation.com now.
Comedy superstar Kevin Hart brings his new tour, Acting My Age, to the venue at Thunder Valley on Saturday, April 26th. Tickets on sale now at ThunderValleyResort.com and KevinHartNation.com.
Alan Stiles here with your Sacktown Sports Injury Update, brought to you by Downtown LA Law Group. After Tommy John surgery in May 2024, Ken Waldachuk began a bullpen progression on March 4th. He continues to throw off the mound and remains in line for a potential return to the major leagues around June. Zach Geloff got his cast removed from his hand fracture and has started light workouts. A 4 to 6 week timeline is about the standard for such injuries, but Zach Geloff hopes to be back sooner. On the court, Devin Carter has been listed as day-to-day with a shoulder contusion and will be listed as questionable for the time being. This injury report was brought to you by Downtown LA Law Group. Hi, I'm Alan Stiles. Injured at work? Call Downtown. Downtown LA Law Group, California's leading injury law firm. With over 40 lawyers throughout California, they've won over $500 million in settlements. Downtown LA Law Group will get you compensation for your work injury. You don't pay unless they win. That's right. You pay zero up front. Call Downtown. Text injury help to 40222. That's injury help to 40222. Visit them at calldowntown.com.
Hello, Sacramento. I'm Emran Pilati, owner of True Sports Cards and Collectible Store here in Rockland, California, and the host of the True Sports Cards Show that airs right here on Sacktown Sports 1140 every Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m., where we discuss the latest trends, hottest products, and deliver exclusive interviews with other industry leaders. And don't forget to visit our shop, True Sports Cards, at 6661 Stanford Ranch Road in Rockland and see what we have for all your sports card and memorabilia needs.
The hot weather is coming. Is your HVAC system ready for it? Let Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating make sure it is. Get to Lee'sAirPlumbingandHeating.com. Check out their $99 HVAC tune-up special. And let me tell you why Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating is the way to go. They took care of me when our heater collapsed over the winter, and Lee set us up with a great new HVAC system that is providing comfort, value, and quality. Let Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating take care of you. License number 635355.
Power Business Technology is proud to be a 100% independent, locally owned and managed Toshiba copier dealer. Local ownership cuts out the red tape, allowing ourselves to never be too busy to personally answer the call when our clients need us. Recognized for excellence in service execution, training, and customer service. We're proud to be named a Toshiba ProMasters Elite Dealer since 2021. Contact us today for all your business printing needs at 844-POWER-BZ. That's 844-769-3729. Or visit us at powercopiers.com.
Sacramento's premier country music festival, Country in the Park, is coming back May 16th and 17th at Cal Expo with Bailey Zimmerman, Billy Currington, Cole Wetzel, Nate Smith, and more. You'll enjoy food trucks, rock walls, and a mechanical bull, line dancing, and more. Single day GA tickets start at $52 at CITPFest.com. Country in the Park, May 16th and 17th with Rox Tech, Michelob Ultra, and Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. More info at CITPFest.com.
Your flagship station for the Beam Team, Sacktown Sports.
Live Return of the Roar podcast here, talking all things Sacramento Kings, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Tuesday here on Sacktown Sports. Brenden Nunes, Chris Watkins in studio here as well. Chris, we were just talking about some of the craziness that's gone on over the NBA over the last couple weeks, which, funnily enough, leaving that vague, you could pick a certain number of topics. By the way, thoughts with Jalen Wells, Sacramento native. I don't know if you saw that at all. That was quite a fall, and you never love to see anybody, obviously, I mean, taken off on a stretcher is quite a sight. So obviously hoping the best for him. But league-wide news earlier today, Mike Malone gets let go. Calvin Booth, their general manager, also gets let go. And all the reporting coming out of there is that, hey, these guys weren't really on the same page. Not that either of them hated each other as people. There was just a disagreement of how to optimize this team, which obviously the guy trying to optimize the players that do exist and the one that is actually putting those players on your team need to be in lockstep. Parallel to the Kings there, obviously, with everything that happened with Mike Brown. plenty that everybody has heard about. Monty McNair being on a different page, Wes Wilcox falling into that as well. You wonder if ownership is on the same page as anybody that I just mentioned in there as well. Chris, I've seen Kings fans, and then there's the Taylor Jenkins firing, obviously, as well, that we talked about in the last segment. I've seen some Kings fans today. I don't even know the right way to word it. It's not a victory lap. It's something along the lines of, oh, but we were wrong for firing our coach. And I struggle to see the parallel here. Two
wrongs don't make a right, buddy.
I would exactly agree. And
in this case,
yeah, I don't know. Does anything that happened throughout the remainder of this season, you can take that as vague as you want.
Yeah.
Change how you feel about how they did that.
No. I think, and I'm sure, again, the Grizzlies and I'm sure the Nuggets would probably, or people who cover those teams would probably say the same. I think it's an independent decision to an extent, like where, I don't think that the rash firings of these two other coaches makes it any less justifiable or any more justifiable to let go of Mike Brown. Like, I think, to me, it just kind of like you laid out earlier, I think the biggest problem with it was that it was rushed, and it not like the Taylor Jenkins or maybe even the Mike Malone thing. Like, the Kings were just kind of, again, like towards the top of the mountain, if you will. If you want to say the mountain that they were climbing was to get to normalcy, like they were finally towards the top of that mountain. And it felt like the first time there was a little bit of decline, they completely abandoned ship. And I think that was what was fundamentally wrong, was you didn't let Mike Brown fix it. You didn't let him go through something and then get better from it. You just left at the first sign of difficulty. And I think maybe you could at least say with those other two coaches, even though it feels like Taylor Jenkins, maybe less so, but those teams made deep playoff runs. They saw a lot more of what those coaches had to give, frankly, in those moments. Kings fans didn't even really get to see if Mike Brown was going to be good enough in the playoffs or anything like that. I think the fact that, I guess maybe the Kings devil's advocate would be, well, we didn't think Mike Brown was going to ever get us to that deep in the playoffs. But regardless, I just feel like the big difference was Mike Brown felt like he was still climbing, where maybe you could make the argument those other two voices had been there for some time and they had been through some adversity, and there was just no other way of figuring it out. With Mike Brown, it just felt like you never even gave him a chance to really make it right.
I think that's a great way to put it. And I definitely agree. I mean, I think like the Memphis comparison, right? They ended up being a 1 seed a couple years ago, and obviously have continuously.
At least and then they were 2 seed the year that the Kings were the 3 seed. Right?
That's right. Yeah. And I guess you would say, I don't know if continuously regressed is the right word, but because it's not a straight line down necessarily, but obviously underperformed expectations. And then there's the weirdness of what we mentioned before, how they reworked his staff without him being involved this offseason, writing on the wall. At that point, you're going to do that. Don't keep the guy around.
They also signed Mike Brown to an extension this past offseason, which I failed to mention. That's a pretty big part of it. You would just double down on this guy.
Yeah, maybe don't do that if you're going to let him go in the first place.
Or do the Taylor Jenkins thing if you are going to do it, and okay, Jordy's gone, like we're going to clear the entire bench, right,
and make it your choice.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I think, like you said, Memphis had been there and continuously regressed, right? You'd seen it over a couple years, and they gave it time for him to try to work through it. He's been there for a little while. Denver, same thing. They obviously won a championship. And then last year, definitely regression, a lot of injury involved with that. I think the Denver one is very unique. And when you have all this back and forth going on in your organization, I don't hate that they let go of both guys. I kind of like that. The timing of it is a different story, obviously, but I kind of like that if you're going to do it, like they're like, all right, these two guys don't get along. Let's just reset both of these. Let's not pick a side necessarily. And yeah, however you want to go about that. But the expectations are different. You just won a championship a couple years ago. And yes, he's proven, Malone, that he can get you there, but that's your goal right now. You were flirting with the 2 seed for a lot of this season, and then obviously have come crashing down. The Kings, Mike Brown got them the 3 seed. What was that? 48 wins, I believe.
48 wins. Yep.
He wins 46 the year after.
Yep.
And they lose in the play-in. So I don't want to hear that
after
there was
winning
like
one of the play for what it's worth.
For whatever that's worth.
Know, you can pick and choose when you want to bring that up, but they did win.
Like I don't think point being, I don't think you can look at those 2 years and be like, oh, that second year where by the way he had the same roster as the year before.
There were some injuries at the end of that year.
There were
some key players.
Yeah. I don't think that you can look at that year and be like, all right, that's a step back. I think that the org probably did look at it that way. I don't think that's fair. I think that you were right.
I don't think you got better, but I wouldn't necessarily say you got exponential.
Yeah, I guess a step back is fine, but maybe not a full step, whatever it would
say
be.
Exactly. Maybe a half step back.
Right. I guess it's a step back because it's not a step forward, right? Which, then you're like, all right, we're supposed to. It seems like the expectation was that this is supposed to be linear, and that's just not how this was going to work.
Right.
And you don't know that this year was going to be a total failure. There's a lot of writing on the wall that I think would have made it really tough no matter what, but you really forfeited it all, essentially. Or I think it kind of all went to chaos when you decided to fire Mike Brown. Obviously, the De'Aaron thing is the tumble down effect there. But it's the timing of it that's so different and the level of expectations. And if you thought that this team will, like, we just should, no question, be a playoff team, it's like, yeah, probably, but like, you have to look relative to your standings because there's 11 teams that say that 11, 12 teams. So if there's 11, 12, it means there's going to be one or two that probably won't be in there. And realistically, you were in that range coming into the year. So I just, it's crazy to me. And I don't see the parallels. I think to point it back to current Kings, obviously in a tight play-in race, no clue who they're going to be playing at this point. If Phoenix ends up losing tonight, we know more likely than not it's going to be Dallas in that first game, assuming that this all stays and that Phoenix doesn't win out the rest of these games, including their final one against the Kings, right? Which would be very Kings. They just got our hopes back up.
Crazier things have happened.
This is where it tumbles back down, right? But do you feel any differently playing against these teams with brand new head coaches like Memphis or Denver? Right. While it's unlikely that they're going to be in this play-in scenario, it's certainly within the cards as well.
Sure, right?
Yeah. I think Denver could still fall into the play-in from my understanding. Both of these sides. Yeah. Yes. Do you feel any better? Is there any part of you that is like, maybe I don't hate that match? Or, okay, so these teams are better than the Kings, just to be blunt.
Yeah, for sure.
But does it feel like, would you feel better about your chances now that they made this move?
I would feel better against the Kings against Memphis, just because I think Memphis, to me, and this is clearly was maybe not how it felt in Memphis, but to me, like, they were a well-coached team that played really hard, played gritty. Like, that was a very, like, coach-identified team, and I don't necessarily think of Memphis as a collection of talent, though I guess Denver you wouldn't say is a collection of talent, but I more so don't want to go against Nikola. I mean, we had to see front and center Game 7 against the Warriors. Now, granted, obviously the Kings beat the Warriors in a play-in situation, but I think more so the significance of Steph dropping 50 in that Game 7 gotta have it. Like, I don't want to play a superstar in a gotta have it win or go home game because I know Sabonis has done really well against Jokic in the past, but in a gotta have it situation, I just feel like, especially with the numbers Jokic has been putting up recently, I don't want to see that. I would much rather take my chances against a John Morant-led team. I know Jaren Jackson is definitely, you could argue, led that team this season as well. But to me, just as a roster versus roster thing, it feels like the Kings could compete a lot better against a Memphis team in a one-game play, and then potentially, seeing Nikola Jokic go 130%, and who knows, he might have a 70-point triple-double in that one.
He very well may. I do feel better about playing those teams because, well, to be fair, it probably just gives me more clarity on what already existed with these teams, because obviously there was already a lot of turmoil behind the scenes that would have leaked into these, I think, no matter what. But now it just becomes surfaced even more, right? Like, honestly, we play a big part in when these things happen. It's not the media's fault for asking about these things, but the fact that you are going to get constantly asked about this feeds into that even more so, right? And it becomes such a part of your end of season story here, especially when you do it with 3 games left in the year. You're, again, signing up for that. So a wild week in the NBA that somehow, once again, overshadows a lot of the mistakes that the Sacramento Kings have made throughout the course of this season. Chris, we've talked, I think they've kind of benefited. You've pointed out to me mainly, actually, that they kind of benefited from a lot of the chaos that has happened throughout this year. I think they could have gotten a lot more crap for a lot that happened throughout the course of this year, but not over. 3 games left in the regular season. We'll see who they end up facing off with in the play-in. I guess there's still a world where this feels somewhat okay. Zach LaVine's playing really well right now, and we'll see if they can continue to click. But that's going to do it for this live episode, Return of the Roar podcast. Myself, Brenden Nunes, Chris Watkins. We're here on Sacktown Sports, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Tuesday. Thanks to everybody for listening. Have a good rest of your day.
Coming down the lane off the rebound. It's 9:16 now. Look toward the sky like the beam now. Tell them like the beam, like the beam.
I love this time of year when the azaleas begin to bloom and the singing bird's sweet dawn chorus